guys, we are here to help you. Yeah, nothing better than to just start right from the beginning. Hayley, take it away.
Pen down, right. A percentage is a portion of a whole, where the whole is 100%. In fact, let me find a little bit of space at the bottom of this page and see if I can draw it. Right. If I look at that being my whole, not a very good circle. Right. If that being a whole, this is 100%. So if I've got a cake, I love cake. MD, do you like cake?
I love cake.
So
I love cake. Yeah.
My cake being 100%. Any part of that I cut off for myself and Indy to share, because I think we'd share about 100%, would be a fraction of the whole. So if I cut this cake, I've now got part of the whole, and I can talk about it as a percentage. Okay, let's get rid of that, and let's go back to our definition. So what does our definition say? We need to move this up a little bit. It's not really struggling a little bit that. Right. Every percentage is a fraction out of 100 or the whole. It is for this reason that we write a percentage as a fraction with a denominator of 100. And it's a really important fact. So any percentage, so for example, today's chance of rain was, let's call it 40%. Right, I can write it as 40%, or I can actually write it as 40 out of 100. 100 being the whole. So that is my percentage. What's nice about being able to write it as a fraction is I can manipulate it like a fraction, and that's really important. So now let's do some percentage calculations. There really are only a few ways that they can ask you percentage, and this is a skill that you're going to learn now that's actually going to take you through to matric. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually say converting a fraction to a percentage. So the question says, what is your test score as a percentage if you get 36 out of 45? Now this is my favorite question, because every time I hand a test back to kids, they say to me, ma'am, what percentage is this? And I say, go calculate it yourself. I'm no longer going to calculate percentages for them, but it's a common question. So let's go through the question again. What is the score as a percentage? As soon as you see, now I hope I've got a pen. Let's just check that I've actually got a pen. Let's do some yellow. As soon as you see the word as a percentage, you know that you're calculating a percentage, your answer is going to be a percentage, and we need to multiply by 100. So the only way I can get a percentage is have my fraction multiplied by 100. So that's the first thing that I'm always going to put in as soon as I see the word percentage. Now I'm looking, I've got 36 out of 45. I need my fraction. My fraction is my result for the test, which in this case was 36, out of the total possible marks that we could get for the test, which were 45. So that gives me my fraction. Most of the time, you will be dealing with the small number divided by the big number, if you want to say it like that. Not very mathematically correct, but we can use it, I'm sure. Because it's a fraction, and if it's a fraction of a whole, then it makes sense that it's less than the whole. That not makes sense. So you're dealing with the smaller number divided by your bigger number, or your test results out of the total possible marks. And we're going to get an answer. Now I'm going to show you how to do this in two ways. One, if you've got a scientific calculator, we're going to use the fraction button. So my fraction button, I'm going to type in my 36, I'm going to go down and type in my 45, and then I'm going to go across, I'm going to try to do that, okay, well my pen was working better, and times by 100 and get an answer. And I see that I get 80%. Okay, so that was, I need a pen color, right, was 80%. Now don't forget to include that percentage sign. It's really important that we always know what the context is, and in this case our context is percentage. If you didn't have a scientific calculator, you would basically be saying your 36 divided by 45. Get into the habit of typing in equals, because it just makes it a little bit neater and there's less chance of getting it wrong. You can use your memory plus and memory minus buttons, but I suggest that you practice using those. In this case, we don't really need it because we've still got our answer that we've divided, and then times by 100 and press equals, and we get 80%. So make sure that you're using the same calculator all the time, then you get used to your calculator and you know how it works. Right, what's the next part of our question? Second part of our question, let's just get a little bit more space here, is, okay, let's move the calculator down, minimize that, or maximize that, right. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Our board's playing games with me. The first part was calculating just the percentage. Now we're going to looking at calculation of a percentage of a total. Let's do an example, and that's the easiest way to look at it. A book costs 250 Rand without VAT. VAT is calculated as 14% of the value of goods. How much VAT do I need to pay? What are they actually asking? They want to know how much VAT do I need to pay. They want to know what portion is VAT. How much do I have to add onto the book as VAT? So they're actually asking for my 250 Rand, and I want to know what 14% of that is. And the only way for me to work out what percentage 14 is of 250 is to multiply. So far what we've discovered with percentage is that we always multiply. So 250 times 14, and now I can basically do this on my calculator and it'll give me my answer. Okay, so let's find the calculator again. Right, so I have 250 Rand and I'm going to times by 14 and use my percentage button. So I'm going to find the percentage button in here, and you can see that I've typed it in, and as I'm typing in the numbers into the calculator, I'm trying to make sense of the number. I'm going to press equal, but before I press equal, actually, I'm going to try and estimate what that answer should be. So if I think about 14, I'm going to take it as maybe 15% of 250. 10% of 250 Rand is 25 Rand. And then I'm looking for another like half of that. So I'm looking for 25 Rand and another about 12, looking at about 37 odd Rand. Let's press equal and see how I get. I get 35 Rand. So that's the VAT portion. Pen here. Right, so it's 35 Rand. Have I answered the question that they actually asked? It said, how much VAT do you need to pay? I need to pay 35 Rand. That's a bit of a tricky question, Indy, because when we go shopping, we don't actually see things without VAT. So this is really a little bit of a contrived example for the classroom, because in reality, when you go to the shops and you pick up the book's going to include VAT. We're going to discuss one of those questions a little bit later, but just something that they need to note. What happens around us? So when would we find out the percentage of something? So I think an example that I can think of is maybe we've got, how many people in South Africa? Indy? Any idea?
Sure.
I think we discussed this last week.
Was it 8 million?
I think it was a little bit more than that.
Don't worry.
Okay.
You know what? Google is my friend. So
let's find out.
How many people
Indy,
in South Africa?
how quickly can we put you on? Okay, we're going to wait for Indy to get back to us with an
It'll be
exact
quick.
number. Well,
I'm
quick
good
number.
with this.
How many people in
50
South
million.
Africa? 50 million.
Over 50 million.
Over 50 million.
How off
right.
the ball was I?
Let's take 50 million. I'm going to take 50 million. Is there any way we can find out how many people live in Gauteng, for example?
Oh, hold on. I can do at a glance by province, population groups, languages, religions. What would you like?
Percentage of people that live in Gauteng.
Okay, let's say by province. Let's see. Gauteng. Oh, I can give you would you like a percentage
There
of
we
South
have
Africa?
a percentage.
22.39%
Okay.
of South Africa.
22.39%. So that seems like a nice calculation. Now we want to know how many people actually live in Gauteng. So I'm going to take my answer and I'm going to very carefully type that into my calculator because there are lots of zeros and it's 22 times 39. So let's find the calculator again. So I've got 50 million. Now that's 50 and I always think in thousands. So I go, well, 50, just to help you type this incorrectly into your calculator because there's so many zeros. Then I go, well, there's 1, 2, 3 in 100,000, then 1, 2, 3 to make it 50 million. And I'm going to times that by, what was that number? 22.39. 39.
Yeah, 22.39.
22.39, and I'm going to put a percentage, and I hope that that number is correct. Let's see what we get. So now, reading this off your calculator is another little bit of a challenge. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start typing it, but I'm going to type it from the backwards. No, I'm going to, okay, right. So I've got 3 zeros, then another 3 numbers. I'm actually looking at 11,195,000. So let's see, let's write that in. Let's try a different color. How's green? So we've actually got 11 million. What did I say that was? 11 million. Keep forgetting. 195. Okay. Go back to here. To choose a color. Doesn't seem to have chosen. 195 and thousands. So we've got 11,195,000 people living in Gauteng. So that seems like a little bit of a more realistic where we would use percentage.
There's quite a lot of people in Gauteng, hey?
Quite a lot of people in Gauteng. It's quite a big percentage if you think about the whole of South Africa, and we've got nearly a quarter living in Gauteng. And why do you think that is?
Well, I suppose because we're a buzzing metropolis. It's where all the business
Absolutely.
happens, where all the movers and groovers and shakers are.
Absolutely.
Eh? Not that there's no movers and groovers and shakers anywhere else.
I'm sure they are all over the country, and I'm sure they are everywhere. So, but there must be lots of reasons that we have this kind of statistic. Our percentage calculation, and this one always comes up, is if we need to increase and decrease by a percentage. So, I mean, I'm increasing something by a specific percent or decreasing it by a specific percent. So let's read the question. I'm going to do one at a time. The population of a town increased, so now we're dealing with increased, from 15,450 people by 8% between 2007 and 2011. Now guys, you'll see when I'm teaching you and when I'm going through the notes that I'm underlining numbers. It's really important that you actually pick out the numbers. If you underline them or highlight them, it makes it easier for you to see what they're actually asking, and then you can go back and read. And then get into the habit of going back and rereading the question to check that you've actually answered it correctly. So right, I've got my numbers that are now standing out. I've got increased, I've got the number of 15,450, and I know how much it's being increased. Now what is the question? It says, how many people live in the town in 2011? So how are we going to do this calculation? First of all, I'm going to show you two ways of doing this calculation. I'm going to start with my 15,450 people, and I'm going to work out what is 8% of that calculation, and I'm going to get an answer for that. So I'm first just working out the fraction. So let's get my calculator out, and we'll clear that answer. Right, so it was 15,450, and I'm going to times that by 8%, and I get an answer of 1,236. So let's write that answer in. 1,000, and I keep forgetting what the number is. 1,236. I got my yellow pen. 1,236. So that is the amount that is being increased. So what I need to do now is I want to ask how many people live in the town. I need to take my 15,450, which was my original, plus my increased amount of 1,236. And I can add that on my calculator. So on my calculator, now I've already got that number in the calculator. So all I need to do is add my 1,5,450. That was my original, and I get an answer of 1,6,686. 16, so that's 1,6,686. That's the number of people that live in the town. And don't forget, it's got a reference, so we've got people. There is another way of doing this calculation, which basically takes us only one step, and I'm going to show this to you now. But before I carry on and explain the second option, I want you to know that there's usually more than one way of doing a calculation. There's more than one way of getting to an answer. And it's really important that when you're practicing, you use your method that makes most comfortable for you, because as long as you can get to the answer. there's often non-mathematical ways to get an answer that make total sense. As long as you can explain to your teacher and your examiner what you are doing and the steps that you've taken to get there, you can do things differently. So let's now take another color, let's use green for a second, and do an OR. Right, so I had my number of 15, I just want to move this up a little bit so I can actually see the number. So it was 15450. That's what I started with. I want to increase it, and percentage we always multiply, and I'm going to increase it by 100% plus my percentage increase. So I'm going to do this in one step. Now actually I'm going to multiply here my 15450, and I'm going to times by 108%. That's going to do it in one step. Basically, in the first part, this was 100%. If we go back to the board, that was 100%, that was my 8%. So what I'm doing in the second, my either or, is that I'm doing this in one step. And on the calculator, it actually makes it a little bit easier, times by 108%, and I should get the same answer, 16686. So let's write that in. What color was I using? I was using green. So that is 16686. So that's just showing you one way. Now I'm going back to the question to see, have I actually answered the question? And the question is, how many people live in the town in 2011? So I have answered the question, so that's perfect. Let's now do a decrease. Now I don't have one written out, so we're going to just make up an example. Okay, Indy, what's your favorite thing to shop for?
Oh my gosh, shoes, obviously.
Shoes,
Ask
okay.
any girl that does say shoes.
We're going to buy shoes for Indy, so let's do a decrease.
Are we? Yeah,
We're going to buy shoes. Okay, and Indy wants to buy shoes, and how much do the shoes cost, Indy?
Oh my gosh, okay. I could probably only say 200 rand, because that's probably what I could afford.
So 200 rand.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you some good news, and I'm going to tell you that the shop that we're buying the shoes from actually are having a discount at the moment. Okay,
Yes.
and we're getting less, let's call it
50%. Oh, 7%.
Let's go 17%. Does that make you
Okay,
feel a little bit better?
much better.
Okay,
Thank you.
so let's find out how much Indy is going to be paying for her shoes that were 200 rand and now on sale are less this 17%.
You know how much girls love a sale, hey?
Absolutely. Oh, that doesn't look like a percentage sign. Right. So I'm going to show you two ways of doing it, the same way I did with the increase. So firstly, we take our 200 rand. Let's extend this a little bit. And we need our question. We've got our 200 rand. And we need to work out what the 17% is of that 200 rand. So let's get an answer for that. So 17, and find my calculator. Right, 200. And remember, we always multiply 17%, and I get an answer of 34 rand. So what does that 34 rand signify? It was 34 rand. That 34 rand is the amount of discount that we are getting on the shoes. So we now take our 200 rand and we minus this 34 rand. And then we will find out what the total we paid for. So I have a calculator. I've got my number. Now on a scientific calculator I can do this, and on a simple calculator it might be a little bit harder. This is where you would use your memory minus and memory plus buttons. So on a simple calculator, type your answer in as a memory minus, because we're going to minus it from our original, and then take your 200 and type it in as a memory plus, and then go to memory recall, and it should give you your answer. On the scientific calculator, I didn't clear my 34, it's still in memory, so I'm going to say my 200 minus my answer, and I'll get 166. Or we could have typed it in again. So, right, so that answer is 166. Right.
Cool. Hayley?
Fair price for shoes.
Yeah,
But there's
that is
another way that we
amazing.
can do this calculation. So let's do one more, show them how to do the calculation again. Let's take another color. So now we've got this either or. We can do it in one step. We can say, well, we've got the 200 rand that we're paying. We're always timesing, but I'm actually timesing by 100% minus 17%. Now you might need to do that calculation on the calculator, or you might know what that answer is. So we're going to say 200 times by, let's do it on the calculator, okay? Just in case, 100 minus 17, and we get an answer of 83. So what we're going to do here is we're going to times this by 80, I don't think I've got a pen, 83%. And we can do that on the calculator. I'll divide the calculator again. Right, so we clear that, and we've got 200 times by 83%. Should get the same answer, 166 Rand. So India's going to pay 166 Rand for her shoes. I think it's a good deal.
I think it's a fair deal.
And this is a little bit harder, so hopefully we'll get to a little bit more challenging. To find the price before adding VAT. So the price before adding VAT, or commission. So say for example we pay 122 Rand for a meal at a restaurant, and there's 14% of that is included in the total. How much VAT did you pay? So what we have here is a little bit more challenging, because we have our meal, which was 122 Rand. Okay, let's put in the center, 122 Rand. And only a portion of this was actually the VAT. That doesn't look so good. Only a portion of this was the VAT. And the question is, how much is that VAT? So it's a little bit more challenging, because now we've got to take what we've learned and minus the VAT. So the way we do this is, well, we say we had our meal, we added the VAT, which was in this case adding 114%, and that gave me a total of 122 Rand. Okay, so my meal plus my VAT was 122 Rand. So what is the meal without the VAT? I'm now going to get the meal on its own. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to divide by 114% on this side, divide by 114% on that side. Okay? Why am I dividing? Because these cancel, and then they kind of disappear. So then I end up with my meal equals 122 divided by 114. So let's get the calculator out and do this on the calculator. I have a calculator. So, okay, that's right. I've got 122 divided by 114%, and I get an answer of 107 Rand and 2 cents. We're rounding off. 107 Rand and 2 cents. So let's go back to my board. This is, more space here, 100. Now I've lost my pen. 107 Rand and 2 cents. Now that is what I paid for my meal, excluding the VAT. Have I answered the question? Let's go up and check what the question was. The question was, how much VAT did you pay? That was excluding VAT, but I paid 122 Rand minus this 107 Rand and 2 cents. So the balance is basically my VAT. So let's find my calculator again, and I can do that. I'm going to round this off. So I'm going to clear that. Say 122 Rand minus my 107,2, and I get an answer of 14 Rand 98. That is what I paid in VAT. 14 Rand and 98 cents. That's what I paid for my meal. That's what I paid VAT. If I answered the question. Right, let's see if we can quickly go on to the next part of percentage and see how we do this. If we ask to find a percentage increase or decrease, and there's a simple formula for this. They're not going to necessarily give you this formula, so you need to learn it. We've got the new amount, minus the initial amount divided by the initial amount times 100. Why are we timesing by 100? We're calculating a percentage. So let's just quickly do an example. If I've got the price of petrol at the coast increased from 10 Rand 26 to 10 Rand 60 at the beginning of February, what is the percentage increase? So my percentage I'm timesing by 100. Now I'm looking at what is my fraction that I'm looking at. Well, I'm looking at the amount of increase. So it was my new amount, 10 Rand 60, minus my old amount, which was 10 Rand 26. And I'm going to divide that by what I initially had, which was my 10 Rand 26. Let's do a quick calculation of this, and then I'm sure we're going to have to wrap up this show. So using my fraction button, 10 Rand, 60 minus my 10 Rand 26 divided by 10 Rand 26 and times by 100. Check that I've got those all correct, and I get an answer of the increase was 3.31%. So let's write that in. It was 3.31%. Basically what I've ended up doing with you is covering percentage. It's been fun, it's flown by this hour. So Indy, we've had some fun today.
I know, I can't actually believe how quickly this lesson went. I'm sure we just started, Haley. Guys, welcome to all the new mindsetters. I want to say hello. Love Hela Tleni. I hope I got your name right. Welcome. It's so nice to see you on the page. Susie, all of you guys, it's been fantastic. Wendy, we are going to be talking about factors at some point.
We probably will get to it.
Yes,
Indy,
we will.
have you got some indication of how they're actually getting onto Facebook? Have they answered that kind of question?
Yeah, well, I've actually had Chris, who's come on, and he said to me that he's, Chris Bafani, he said he's using a cell phone. I think that most of the mindsetters are using their cell phones and not computers. But I think this is fantastic, 'cause you know what? That means they can sit in front of the TV, on their couch or in their classrooms watching Mindset Learn, and they can literally use their cell phones to ask questions. And also, guys, don't feel ashamed to speak to other mindsetters on the page. We want that. We want you guys to start talking to each other and helping each other solve questions.